and welcome to Daily Newspaper Analysis, which is presented to you by LawSeco. Today we will discuss two articles. The first article is from The Hindu, which is titled as Recognizing Caste-Based Violence Against Women. This is a very beautifully written article which highlights the need of the authorities and the judicial system to make a focus on the caste-based violence against women and what are the atrocities they are facing has been discussed in this article. The second one is from the Indian Express, which is titled as Why China Has Relaxed Its Two-Child Policy to Three. So recently, China has announced that now it would allow 3 children per couple. And what is its three-child policy as well as what was its two-child policy has been discussed in this article. Also, we're delighted to announce that from today, we will not have the news and flash column in this newspaper analysis. Rather, we have brought to you a more elaborate and descriptive news and flash column, which will be presented as a separate video. This will be available on both the channels of LawSeco, that is LawSeco Judiciary Prep, as well as LawSeco CLAT Prep. So if at all you wish to do it for your prelims exam or just keeping updated yourself with various little news that are happening in and around us, so please make sure that you are definitely subscribing to the channel and having a look at the video as well. So this newspaper analysis is presented to you by me. My name is Sheva Khan and I had completed my BA LLB law degree from Dehradun in the year 2019. I have been the gold medalist of my batch and also been a national debater as well as a public speaker. At LawSeco, I'm working as current affairs expert and manager for free content and outreach. If you wish to connect with me, you can always find me on my Twitter as well as LinkedIn handles. The links to both are available in the description. Let's see what is a multiple choice question from yesterday's discussion. Your options are World No Tobacco Day is observed on. Your options are 1st June, 31st May, 5th June, or none of the above. You can write down your answer in the comment section below. This is the descriptive question of the day. How are women in India more vulnerable to various kinds of atrocities? Discuss. On this note, let's get started with the first discussion of the day, which talks about caste-based violence against women. So the article says that recently in the case of the Supreme Court, in the case of Patan Jamal Walu versus State of Andhra Pradesh, addressed the intersectionality of caste, gender and disability. Now here, before moving deeper into this argument or this entire article discussion, we need to understand as to what has been pointed out in this recent case by the Supreme Court. The term here has been used is the intersectionality of the caste, gender and disability. So if at all, when we try to see from one single lens, we definitely can see and say that in our country or the social setup that we have in our country, India, definitely there has been, even despite after continuous efforts of the government and various authorities to put down any of these kinds of discriminations, but yet it is the harsh reality of our society that still we have biasness and we have a lot of discrimination based on caste, gender and disability. But if at all we consider even a more intrinsic look into these caste, gender and disability, it is not that the people belonging to one particular caste are treated in a similar manner. By this, we mean to say that in the caste as well, in the gender as well, in disability as well, women are the one who have to face a higher or a greater brunt of that as well. So in a way, actually, what they have to face are the double atrocities. By that we mean that firstly, she suffers because of the caste that she is born into. And secondly, she suffers because she is a woman who is born into that particular caste. A very good example of this has been given by the Hathras rape case of a 19-year-old girl who was raped not only because she was a woman, of course, in the first place, but also because she belonged to that particular caste. So definitely in various states in the country, like let's say for example, UP and Bihar, even in Rajasthan as well, there is a high predominance of the caste system wherein people do not easily neglect the caste which they or the other people belong to. And in such cases, the atrocities against the people belonging to a particular caste, and to be getting into further detail or into further intrinsic way, even the women of that particular caste, that particular disability are also treated more, in an even worse manner. So here they have given some more examples wherein we discuss the case and the intersectional approach. So it says that here what happened was that the victim, who was the victim of the sexual assault, was a blind 22-year-old Dalit woman. Now, as you can see here, that here there were double atrocities that this person had to face. Now, what were that? First, she was a blind, woman. So firstly, she had a disability, and secondly, she was a Dalit woman. And even if we bring it into gender, so here we can count into three atrocities that she had to go through. First, based on her gender, that she was a woman. Second, based on her disability, that she was blind. And third, based on the caste, that she was a Dalit woman. So that is why the article very nicely points out to the fact that people who are subjected to these any of these kinds of things, be it the caste, gender, disability, they are at a greater risk, or they are more vulnerable to any kinds of atrocities or discriminations in the society. So here, the trial and the High Court convicted accused under IPC and also the POA Act. Now, the POA Act is the Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe Prevention of Atrocities Act. So this is a very important act which actually provides a lot of justice to the SCs and STs in the country. So in this particular case, the trial had occurred and the High Court convicted the accused not only under IPC, definitely for rape, but also or the sexual assault, but also under the Prevention of Atrocities to the SC/ST Act, which was a one step forward in recognizing the fact that yes, this woman was not only subjected to this abuse or the sexual violence just because she was a woman, but also because she was a member of any kind of Dalit society. So the Supreme Court confirmed the conviction only under Section 376 of the Indian Penal Code. Now, why at all we're discussing it here? That we need to make sure, the article says, that the judiciary, while granting the punishment in such particular cases in which at least it can be proved that a woman had to face, or a person had to face atrocities, specifically if we talk about rape, so that woman had to face that rape not only because she was a woman, but also because she belonged to an SC/ST community. If at all that is proved, then not only the conviction should take place under Section 376 of the Indian Penal Code, which penalizes for rape, but also the relevant sections and the relevant provisions of the POA Act, which was the Prevention of Atrocities Against the SC/ST Act, should also be inflicted. Wherein, in this particular case, the example which we were just discussing, though the High Court convicted the accused under IPC and POA both, but the Supreme Court confirmed the conviction only under Section 376 of IPC and did not take into account the relevant sections of the POA Act. So if at all we try to understand about the intersectional approach, so here we need to consider multiple marginalities. So the Supreme Court recognized that when the identity of women intersects with her caste, class, religion, disability, and sexual orientation, she may face violence and discrimination due to two or more grounds. That simply is what we call as the intersectional approach, wherein we get into various sections of the blocks of the society and consider as to how many sections or how many of these grounds are applicable on one particular person. So similarly, it has been said that considering the caste, class, religion, disability, and the sexual orientation, there is a greater chance that a woman may face violence and discrimination due to two or more things. So the court placed special emphasis on making the criminal justice system more responsive to women with disabilities facing sexual assault. So here it is important for us to understand that here, and the example also says that many a times the women definitely have to go through a lot of cases of sexual abuse, violence, and assault. But if at all that woman is suffering from any kind of ailment, any kind of disease, any kind of disability, because many a times it is seen that many times in the care houses also, or in the asylums as well, women who are not mentally very much healthy, or they're not very much capable mentally, are also often raped. So that also is one thing that puts them to a greater risk or vulnerability of being raped or sexually assaulted. So the court laid down directions to train the judges police and the prosecutors to be sentenced in such cases, and also to be made more sensitized. So basically it says that it also put in directions that the judges or any authority, be it the authorities, be it the NGOs or the police, the prosecutors, or all, whoever has to deal with such a victim or such, basically what would I call as a survivor, so they should be a very very sensitive in this regard, and they should be putting forward their questions, and whatever whatever they have to ask, they should be very much sensitive about it, and they should be very soft spoken to such a person, unlike the real scenario case which occurs in the current situation, wherein we say that a woman who is already has survived the rape, who is already a victim of rape, is further victimized during the trial, wherein she's asked very inappropriate questions, and more onto this in a very inappropriate manner, so that this second victimization should be definitely stopped. So, if at all we consider the convictions under Prevention of Atrocities Act 1989, so in 2006, in the case of Dinesh alias Buddha versus State of Rajasthan, the Supreme Court held that it is not the case of the prosecution that rape was committed on the victim, since she was member of the scheduled caste. So, here it says that it definitely needs a proper proof to be brought forward, that not only the rape was committed because she was a woman, but also she belonging to any kind of such caste or tribe should be known, and it should be proved that this was one of the reasons that actually attracted or that actually made the assaulters to assault any particular woman. Then, in the case of 2017 of Ashrafi versus State of UP, the court held that evidence and materials on record did not show that the appellant had committed rape on the ground that victim was it belonged to the scheduled caste, and that is why definitely here a point of confusion can be seen, wherein it might become very difficult to prove as to the knowledge of the assaulter or the rapist, that whether or not he knew that the woman belongs to the SC/ST community. And then in 2019, in the case of Khuman Singh versus State of MP, the court held that there was no evidence to show that the offense was committed on the grounds of caste. So the only evidence here, it says that the accused knew that the caste of victim before committing the offense. So now this is an important point, that here the accused must know, and that also should be proved, that the accused very well knew about the caste of the victim before committing such offense. So we know that there are, the top 10 states that have been up in the crimes against women. So we have Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Assam, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and the Union Territory of Delhi. So definitely we need to make the environment, the atmosphere more, in a way safer and better for the women's safety. Let's discuss the second article of the day, which talks about China's two-child policy relaxed. So after China's census showed slowest population growth since the times of 1950s, it is now allowed 3 children per couple. Now here we need to know the fact that China still, even after bringing in such strict reforms in its population measures, and that how many children would the couples be allowed to have, still China remains to be the most populous country of the world. Though India is also not very far away, and with this keeping in mind the speed with which Indian population is growing, very soon it would cover up or it would run beyond China's population as well. But still, China remains to be the country with the highest population in the world. So that is why now, as the Chinese census has revealed that it has had the slowest population growth since the time of 1950s, it has now relaxed its two-child policy and has allowed 3 children per couple. So before that, let's understand about China's one-child policy, which was the harshest of all, which had been brought in order to curb down or to slow down the population growth of the country. So it was enforced by the then leader called as Deng Xiaoping in the times of 1980s. And in 2016, the ruling Communist Party allowed 2 children per couple. So it was very recently, only in the year 2016, that 2 children were allowed per couple. And the reasons were given that the rapidly aging population and undermining economic growth of China. So definitely, we need to see that if at all you're allowing only one child per person, so the people who are already in the age group of aging, so definitely now there will be aging population or a faster aging population as compared to the youth in the country, due to which definitely the economic growth of the country was hampered, because obviously we need a lot of young people for employment generation, for various kinds of activities, for various industries. And as we know that China is the greatest hub of manufacturing in the entire world, so it needed people to work in the factories, which definitely it was falling short of. And that is why in the year 2016 the ruling party, or the Communist Party, allowed 2 children per couple, and now this has been further extended to 3 children per couple. So, if at all we talk about the performance of the policy, whether or not how much was it really able or capable to control the population of China in a positive manner, so it was enforced through several means, like incentivizing families financially, making contraceptives widely available, and imposing sanctions for violation. So basically, various multi-modal or multilateral, multi-directional or dimensional aspects and steps were taken to make sure that the people are adhering to the one child policy, wherein the families were incentivized financially for doing so. They were the contraceptives were widely available for the people, and also many sanctions and many penalties were imposed for the people who violated the same. And this prevented up to 40 crore population being born. So this can be in a way considered to be as an achievement of the one child policy, wherein it actually practically stopped 40 crore people to be added to the population of China. But yes, definitely, if we talk about the cons, so it definitely aged the population of China very quickly, and also it had a shortage of manpower and labor. And not only just manpower and labor, but also many reports had revealed once that China is facing problems in recruiting the army as well. And even those soldiers that are being recruited or that are being deployed in the army are not as strong as compared to the Chinese army that is used to be. Because obviously, when we have a single child, more or less the parents do not first in the first instance they do not want to send their children into the army, because that definitely that person, that child to that family will be the only ray of hope in the coming future. And if at all they do, then the quality of the nutrition that is being given to them, or maybe they're not brought up into a lot of physical activities, or various reasons for that. So even the army of China had to face a kind of weakness. So there were issues also, great issues that were attached to the one child policy of China, that the state used forced abortion and sterilizations as well, which was definitely very, this very, it was very bad in a way, or it was not at all something that supported the human rights. And also it was unfair to the poorer Chinese, because the rich could pay for the sanctions, but the poorer could not. And also the rich people have a greater income from just one source of income, but that is not the case with the poor people, right? Many times the whole family has to work together to earn a family income or a family living. And definitely if they were allowed to have only one child, so the entire income of the family was hampered. And even the sex ratio became skewed towards males. Now this is one thing which was perhaps one of the most bizarre outcomes that came out of the one child policy of China, that the sex ratio, it declined very rapidly. Because when the parents or the couples were given a choice not only to have one child, so definitely they preferred having a male child over a female one, because they believe, just like in the patriarchal system unfortunately that we have in our country, that the male child will stay with them, or he will earn better, he'll be stronger, can take better care of the family and stuff. And that is why many abortions started taking place, wherein the female fetus or the female child was aborted, and the male child was preferred over the female one. And that is why the sex ratio declined and skewed very rapidly in China. So now, if we talk about this current relaxing policy, which is now allowed 3 children to this policy, so the population growth rate fell despite the 2016 relaxations. So even though 2016 relaxations allowed 2 children, but still the population growth rate had fell according to the 2020 census data. So the country's fertility rate dropped to 1.3, which was far below the replacement level of 2.1. And the United Nations expects China's population to begin declining after 2030, and by 2025, it will lose its most populous tag to India. So here, India, by the time of 2025, we might cross China and might become the most populous country of the world. So the reasons for fewer children are the rising cost of living, education, and supporting the aging parents. Yes, for sure. The culture or long working hours of China, or the Chinese system of working, or the work stations. And thirdly, the cultural shift during the decades of one child policy. So all of these factors have definitely changed the perspective of the people in China as well. And ultimately, this has resulted in a slower or a lesser growth rate of the population. So this was all for the day. We hope it was a good and informative session for you all. Thank you so much for staying tuned with Lawseco. Please subscribe to our channels for such more updates to come.